Welcome to Adventures in Fundraising. My name is Janeal Ford. I am the founder of Affordable Fundraising and the creator of Nonprofit Adventures. Welcome to our show today. We're really excited to have with us our guest, our second guest. I'm really excited to have him share with you information about strategic plans and goal setting. Strategic plans are something that, if you really want to make a difference and have an impact, you have got to have a plan. And a lot of nonprofits just don't even have them. And so I'm excited to have him here today. I have known Jeff it's been a little more than a year, but it's been great. He's an author. He's a speaker, and he's become a really good friend. And even his wife, his dog, I just love his whole family. They're just amazing people. And so I am excited to have him here with you. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring him on, and we'll see if we can get this to work here. Okay. All right. Here you go. All right. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Janeal. So the fact is, you hang out with me so you can hang out with my dog. Is that?
Oh yeah. Well, Telly's just so sweet.
And you live
in Pacific Beach.
We are.
It's a great place to be. So, well, can you just share a little bit about your background with the group and how you got to where you are? And
yeah, how did I get here? That's a great question. Yeah, so my background is I actually have an engineering degree. I've been kicking around out here in the industry for over 40 years now, so I'm an old dude. First 20 years of my life was working in corporate America, starting out with Fortune 100 companies, and then some middle market companies on down to what's involved a successful startup about 20 years ago. And then made a shift and said, all right, I'm going to do my own gig. And I had discovered in my corporate life that I had a real bent towards doing project work. I just really, the point of the spear, going after that big project that's going to change the future, putting a great team together and making that happen. So launched a business 20 years ago to specifically focus on that, which really most of the time led to coming in to help companies turn around their big projects, because statistically about 80% of the time strategic projects fail at various levels. And so that's what I was doing. And up to about almost 2 years ago now, where I revised the business a bit based on a book I wrote, the second book I wrote, which is called Jailbreak Leadership. And so what we're doing with that is actually working with leaders to figure out what their purpose is, to connect that to the passion of the organization, and then how does that tie into their grand vision that they're inviting people into, which then connects directly to what's the strategic plan to go make that happen, and how do we execute on that. So that's what I've been up to. That's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. So I guess in your experience, I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and you've had to turn projects around that were failing. Why? What were the biggest reasons why often those projects were failing, in your opinion?
When I would come into a client and their big initiative was failing, there was usually just a couple of things. Number one was they usually didn't have a great sense of urgency around the project for a couple of reasons. I'm going to say that was always the most fundamental issue, is lack of sense of urgency. So almost anything in life, be it personal or in business, when it's important, we actually work on it. So until it gets to the top of the list, we have a way of putting it off. And that's one of the challenges of strategic projects, is the future. And we always have a tendency to put the future thing off. I'll start my diet tomorrow. Right? One more hamburger is not going to kill me, right? So the same thing sort of happens with projects. And so the day-to-day consumption of resources and time tend to steal from those projects. So one is, I would come into a client and often find out they really weren't working on it. They're holding meetings, they may be spending money, but from week to week, very little measurable traction was being made. And typically it's because people are being drawn away and working on other things. So that was usually one thing. And the second thing was, the story wasn't very good. Business leaders tend to be a little bit more around the accounting side, and we're doing this to make more money. And quite honestly, people in organizations don't really care about that. They're not going to make more money because the project's successful. And so there usually wasn't really a good compelling story around the purpose or around the project, and thus people just weren't that fired up or motivated to work on it. So all that really tied back into like lack of sense of urgency for getting it done.
Yeah. So how do you, as you think about strategic plans, and I have found that that's probably the most challenging thing, is like you can't do it alone, and you have to get a vested interest in your people they have to catch the vision. They have to see it. They have to see where you're going. How do you go about doing that? How do you plan for that?
So that's what the whole premise of Jailbreak Leadership was all about. I 20 years ago hit this thing that I like to call smoldering discontent. So I was a business leader. I was involved with the startup, and outside looking in, lots of good success. I'm making some good money. We've got on NASDAQ. So most part, outside looking in, you would say, "Wow, Jeff's doing really great, and it's wonderful." But the reality was, I wasn't very happy. It was like, one more success, great. It's just kind of passing. It's never as good as you think it's going to be. And then also when you kind of reflect on the journey of getting there, that wasn't that pleasurable either. It was always kind of striving and grinding and competing and dealing with problems. And so life in general just never seemed to be that good for me. And then when you look around, that's sort of the reality in the work life. 80% of people are not finding meaning at work. They're not excited about coming. They're essentially trading time for money. So challenge one is, how do we change that equation? And so what I landed on after kind of looking at this for a long time was that I felt we were like in the jail of our minds, that we were pursuing this thing that I like to call the world's model of success, which is it's all about the money, it's all about position, and it's all about prestige, which is if I do good with 1 and 2, I get to go buy some stuff. And that's great until it's not, because it's never really fulfilling. So I think the opportunity today, and that's what we do with Jailbreak Leadership, is how do we start to change that equation? Yes, we need to be successful, but how do we start to bring significance in? And so we work with leaders to help discover what their personal purpose is, and then we use that to inform the purpose of the organization, which becomes like this enrolling story that it can start to tell. My business is unique because, yes, we make trash cans, but how we make trash cans, or how they're delivered, or how they impact whatever this passionate thing of the owner is what he starts to invite people into: customers, key vendors, his employees. And so at that point, we got to get people enrolled. So it's really about a process for how do we make the creative vision that's really full of passion, that people, like-minded people, can align up with and go help deliver on.
Yeah, in the nonprofit space, we have a lot of passion. I mean, everybody and it really kind of make for some politics too, because it's like everybody's so involved. But I would say sometimes burnout becomes an issue for people in the nonprofit space. When you talk about smoldering discontent, it's like years and years of just lack of self-care is what we're up to, because it's never, people in nonprofits, it's never really been about the money, but it can become a grind, as you say, because you're not really, like, the need is so great and you're just completely steeped in lack and what you don't have. And that can be really difficult. And I think I have found that the beauty of strategic plans is it helps you cast that vision for the future, and it charts kind of a course, and you're not quite sure how it all, you're not quite sure how it's all going to come to pass, but you kind of have an idea. It's a sketch, and you sort of work into the details of it. How do you go about setting goals, or how would you go about setting a strategic plan for an organization?
Well, before I kind of speak to that, I would like to step back. I would just like to step back a little bit more, because back again, I think sense of urgency is, you can have all the greatest tools in the world, but if people are not motivated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is about people being excited about doing their job.
True.
And so when I talk to people in nonprofit, like, well, we have tons of passion because we're saving the world. And so when I look at when I look at businesses, I look at nonprofit, they all look the same to me. And so it can kind of be, it's true of both. I think there's two stories to be told. So one is the actual product or service that this business or nonprofit provides. Is there a story to be told there? And so 9 times out of 10, that's true. There's a good story to be told in the nonprofit. Yes. So that's good. So we need to tap into that. That's what we're inviting people into. But I'll also point out that, say you're an accountant working in this nonprofit. Are you connected to that end result? I mean, you may never see a homeless person, right? If that's the kind of nonprofit. So one is you may not be connected to that bigger picture. But 2, there's this great opportunity within the business for a second story. And that's where I'm saying that's where the business leader has an opportunity to invite people into another passionate story that they can now say, oh, we're working on homeless. And a lot of people are working on homelessness, let's say. But we're doing it like this in a way that really touches people's hearts, right? And it comes from the leader's passion, which is rooted in their purpose, which is really an act of service. So there's really 2 levels of a story that can be created in an organization. And then the third piece of that is, okay, I'm an employee here. I'm buying into the bigger story. That's great. That's going to carry me a certain part of the way. I'm going to buy into the leader's kind of second story, the unique thing. So that's good. But what about me? Right? So one of the roles the leader needs to have is, how am I going to connect this employee and the work they're doing? And how does that impact the outcome of what we're trying to do in the business? How are we tapping into their uniqueness, their purpose, their skill sets? So there's really kind of 3 opportunities to really get people excited about what's going on there. And that takes work, takes some exploration. But to me, that's the answer, because if you can get people fired up, you get people excited, you change that 80% people just showing up to, imagine 50% going, I'm here and I'm on fire. What would that do to the results?
Right. Yeah.
So you got 3 shots, so one's not working today. Hopefully one of them is. And so we're keeping everyone enrolled and enthused in what we're doing.
Yeah, and as I think about that, with as far as, these leaders are burnout in the nonprofit space, they've given their all and they've been doing it and they're just like tired. And it really is, if they're worn out, if they're tired, if they're burnt out, that's just going to trickle on down to their team. And so, crap rolls downhill, as I like to say. And so I guess in that case, you got to check in with yourself. And it's about, self-awareness. It starts with you. I mean, it really starts with us, right? And
I have a little story for you that.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So the first time I actually found myself in a leadership role was many years ago. And I've raced sailboats pretty much my whole life. And so I was the skipper of a 38-foot boat, and we're racing to Catalina out of Long Beach. And halfway across the channel, the wind pretty much shut off. And the boat I raced on, I've been racing with these guys for a while. There was a lot of beer drinking that went on at the end of the races, but when we were racing, it was very serious. It was very competitive. So anyways, we're sitting there kind of, like doing the math, like we're never going to get there. It was very frustrating trying to make the boat go. And I don't know, all of a sudden I said to someone, grab me a beer, and kind of almost an unconscious sort of thing. And I just started drinking my beer, and I was sort of thinking about, tactics or whatever I was thinking about. And all of a sudden I looked around and I realized everyone's drinking beer now, right? So the minute, it was a big old wow. The minute I was probably in my 20s or something, youngest guy in the boat. But the minute I threw in the towel, everyone else threw in the towel. And essentially grabbed that beer, said, we're done, right? Start the engine and let's go. And so I never forgot that, how you show up as a leader. Man, everyone's watching you. So when the big problem hits, how do you behave? What do you look like? You freaked out? If you're freaked out, then everyone should be freaked out, right?
Yeah, so, they just pick up on that energy for sure.
Everyone's watching you. And if you're up to big things, it's hard. There's lots and lots of things that are looking to take you out. So often you better be faking it.
Yeah, I was reading an article about Mark Zuckerberg having bulletproof walls in his office and like an escape hatch, and I don't want that life.
I love my work environment. Right? What kind of message does that give? Wow.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah, right.
Does he ever go out and touch any human beings in his organization, or is he behind the glass waving at everyone?
Yeah. And I would
All
guess
right.
that I would like to think that it's probably outsiders. I don't know. Yeah, I just, who knows? But that's just at a different level. But what do you think holds organizations back from, like, why can't they figure out the whole strategic plan thing and set goals? What do you think gets in the way of that?
Wow. I mean, there's a couple of things here for sure. I think there's two pieces. I mean, we just talked about the need for some passion, excitement about where we're going to go, we all, there's management and there's leadership, and none of us has like a huge dose of both. I mean, we're gonna typically kind of lean one way or the other. So if you're an individual that's like really strong in the leadership, you're probably the guy that can probably go, I can spin a story, I can get people excited, just go take a hill, right? And everybody goes, yeah, let's go. Halfway up, we run out of water and we all die. There's one side. On the other side, I'm a great manager. Man, we're well organized, we're effective, we're efficient, and we never leave base camp because we can't find a hill to take. So part of the strategic planning and the tools that we provide and how we support folks has to say, how do we bring those two together? How do we support them in bringing a vision forward if you're not that person, in a way that we turn them into that person? Doesn't mean you have to be standing on a box yelling and screaming, but we're just looking what's that thing that's in them that they just want to express, and help them express that in a way that's exciting. And then the flip side of it is, how do we have the tactical pieces that actually help us identify, here's what we're going to do, here's the steps, here's the plan, and it's real. Too often, strategic planning tends to be some 2-day exercise. We leave feeling, kumbaya, the world's going to be different as soon as we do all this. And then we go back to the office, we stick it in the drawer. All the fires, everything that we didn't do for the last 2 days consume us. And then months later, we go, we don't even remember doing that strategic planning process. And then a year later, we go, oh, isn't it time to do that plan again? And we pull it out and we knock the dust off. And there you go. And we really haven't moved the organization because we haven't really, worked on the plan.
Yeah, setting that intention for what's to come. And yeah, I hear you. In nonprofits, I've seen, that they, one thing I've also seen is that they'll go through the planning process and they will come up with high level initiatives of where they want to go, and they'll sort of outline them, and that's where they'll stop. They don't, and to me, I think the critical piece is really to do, like, when you have to get the cost projections for those things, it forces you to really tuss out the details. Like, if you think you want to expand your program by, into a new location, what is that going to cost? Even to just do, it forces you to dream a little bit. And if you can get those costs down, I've seen in nonprofits that, they are pretty good at budgeting, the annual budget process. They can get that in place. And if it's in the budget, it gets done. And the trick is to get those strategic initiatives and layer in those costs into that, annual budget process, so that, because if it's in the budget, it'll get done. And if you've done your homework on these strategic initiatives and you've pinned down what it might, it's not a thing yet. That's the hard part. I like to call it, here's a technical term. It's a swag, a sophisticated wild ass guess. So that's what
you're saying is, one can't put a budget together unless they have something to budget against. So the first thing you got to do is say, well, what are the steps? What do we got to do? What are the resources? What do we got to buy? Right? What's it going to take to get us from point A to point B? And so you can't do the budget until you actually do that at some kind of swag, right? And like our best guess of what it's going to look like. So all you're saying is, we got to have a plan. Have a 20,000 foot vision, right? That's what the leader does. Now we need the management side to come in and say, how are we going to do it? What's it going to cost? Who's going to do it? How's it fit into the organization?
And I've seen a lot of times it just stops at they get the initiatives are too high level. Like, they're not, there's nothing to really grab onto. Like what, it's not specific enough that you could actually put some cost to it,
So, along those lines, the other thing that happens is that things are always harder. Things always take longer. I mean, they're just, we need to understand that a really well-run business is really highly effective and efficient, highly repeatable. People show up. We want you to do exactly today what you did yesterday. It's the McDonald's make a hamburger. That makes business success, right? Doing a project, let's venture up a hill. We don't know much about the hill. We don't know what's going to happen to us. We know it's going to rain. We don't know what. That takes an entirely different type of leadership, different mindset. Business operations is kind of silos. You know, we got the marketing group, we got the finance group, and they all have their little silos doing their thing. Project teams have to be a team. They have to come together, collectively solve problems. And so it's a whole different dynamic. And so companies aren't built to do projects. They're built to run operations. And so then we go charging up the hill, trying to manage it like we run our business. And it quite honestly doesn't work. So there's a lot of pieces that actually have to be put in place if you want to do big things to go be successful.
So tell us a little bit more about like if I wanted to work with you, if I wanted to hire you, what would you come in and do for me? What would you step me through, or what are your services? Tell me a little bit more about that.
It all starts with the assessment. It really starts with a conversation with the CEO. I mean, it's really sitting down and trying to understand where you're trying to go, what's your vision, what's been keeping you from getting there. So we need to understand it's some sort of fundamental level, you know, where we're at and where we're trying to get to. And it actually has to be some judgment. And that's why we have the assessment, is going in the organization and trying to query and understand from the organization's perspective of where we're at, because you may not be ready to go charge the hill. You know, if you can't run your business effectively enough to get the products out the door and make money, or, you know, not burn all the money you've been given as a nonprofit, and then have enough left over to go man that team that we're talking about, you'll never be successful, right? So you got to have that, you got to be in this place of having enough capacity to actually go and charge after your strategic plan. So what we want to do is come in and see what you're at. And that's the number one goal. Understand what you're trying to do. Then we understand what the barriers look like. And there might be some steps you got to take before we actually go for the hill. But once we say, yeah, let's go do this, our first step in the process is really to work individually with the leader and do that purpose process I was sharing earlier. Because what we want to do is we want to create passion for the organization, right? We want to get that. We got the first story. We know why we exist. What's the unique thing we can bring to the party? So we can bring that into the organization as the next level of excitement and passion. And then from there, we bring in the team to do the strategic planning, where we start to look at what's the grand vision? How will the world look differently if we were successful doing what we said we're going to do? What are the values that are going to support that? A SWOT analysis, understand our strengths and weaknesses and the threats for us. And then we turn it into projects. Everything we were talking about earlier is like, okay, how do we slice and dice this? Because the other piece that I always see as the failure, back to capabilities again, is I think leaders, they are in charge of the accelerator pedal, right? You have X amount of resource, you have X amount of energy. And if you just keep piling things on top, you can be pretty sure nothing's going to get done. And that's, again, what I see too often is we're trying to do way too much. So there needs to be some filtering. And that goes back to you going, what can the budget support? What can our resources support? And then say, all right, I would love to do 3 things, but the reality is, let's do 1 and let's be successful with the 1.
I know.
Typically, I think we bite off way too much.
Yeah, less is more. In fact, today's Super Tuesday. My sticker. I got my sticker. I voted. Did you vote?
I voted too. I did.
Woohoo! And we had a team meeting, and we decided to. I call it the Super Tuesday, but now we're gonna call it the Tuesday intention. So we went around and everybody shared what their intention was for the month. And my intention is to delegate, is to say no and ask for help. And that's, that's my intention. And because I need to do less in order to do more,
So kind of funny. I mean, you're actually in my group. We just launched a kind of a peer-to-peer CEO group. And it's all about defining our strategic plans and our vision and how are we going to look different at the end of 2020. And so I was using my own tools on myself and started to put all this stuff down. And I got it all done. And I stepped back and I looked and I go, I don't think I think I need to do all this, but I don't think I can do all this. And so
Yeah.
it's so much easier to put it on paper. And then, I mean, just one of my philosophies in leading project teams is you got to win the day. It's like football. You got to get the first down, right? You got to get 3 yards, 4 yards. You got to get the first down. So if you win enough days, you'll win enough weeks. You win enough weeks, you win enough months. And next thing you know, you'll get across the goal line. And so you want to feel good. You need to have momentum. That's the other thing for your team. Your team's got to feel like you're winning. If every day you're like, man, we just didn't get it. We didn't get the first down, or we feel like we're always taking 2 steps backwards. So you got to continuously look for wins. And so if you're overburdening the team, they never feel like they're winning. So part of the leader's job is, how do I start to create a winning environment, a winning team, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment, where we're getting there, and then celebrate that. Don't just, oh, thanks. We expect you to do that. Let's move on to the next thing. But it's all about building teams that actually feel great about working for you and feeling fulfilled and like, I had a good day today. Versus like, here's my to-do list and I just rewrote 50% of it onto tomorrow. That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, it just takes constantly just checking in with yourself, doesn't it? Like you're saying that, and it's like, oh.
Which may even say, how do we manage the program differently? How do we help people? So don't assume people know how to manage their day-to-day basis. So like one of the tools that we definitely have used over the years is some version of Agile, which is always about winning the day. You get together for 15 minutes in the morning and say, what are we going to do today? What would success look like today? And then the next day you check in and say, how'd it go? And if you did it, great. No further discussion. What are we doing today? And if it didn't happen, do you need help? You got it? No, you don't need help. Okay, great. So, 15 minutes. You watch any professional sports, they run plays. They don't just go out there and start running willy-nilly. They don't have a meeting once a week like typical projects, right? And go, hey, I let you run wild for a week. Where'd you end up? Nowhere. So you have to implement some tools and processes that are different than operations to help be successful. But I'm a big advocate of, how do we start to create winning, the feeling of winning on the team? Because projects can be hard.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. It's like, we got to celebrate, and you got to have a sense of amusement, and it's got to be light. Sometimes I can totally get there myself, just where it's like, I can't believe I've got so much to do. And one of the things I try to do is I try to write down 3 things, or I write down 3 things that, okay, I just need to get these 3 things done today, and that's it, and I'll feel good.
So about 4 o'clock, you start working on them, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Any other tips you'd like to share about planning or goal setting?
Actually, what you were just saying triggered another thought that's part of the leadership of trying to be successful in executing these strategic programs, which is way under, I don't think it's even understood, is the fact that if you're going to do something big and new, that means you're changing some things. And if you're changing things, then that means some things probably have to die or go away. And I think we way underestimate what that means to people in the organization. So when we start a big program, we probably said, oh, we know that's got to go because we're going to do this. So there's some obvious things that we all kind of accept up front. But when you start the journey, and usually kind of generate out of problems, all of a sudden new things show up. And you say, well, that's not working anymore. We need to jettison that thing and take on something new. So time something has to go away, that's usually held by somebody in the organization kind of closely. Like it was their procedure, or maybe even the person is not up to the task and they have to go away. And so there's kind of this ongoing death process when you're on a big project where lots of change is involved. And as a leader, you need to appreciate that. So I find often when you got a problem and we've had some meetings and we're like, oh yeah, we got a solution, but somehow it's not being implemented. 9 times out of 10, you'll find there's some resistance in the organization where some folks just aren't willing to let go of that. And so that's ongoing. And for me, if you go, well, that's stupid, just let go of it because it doesn't affect me. But if it's yours, then it means it's got your name on it. It was your baby. It was your thing. And all of a sudden that needs to go. So that's actually part of the journey that I think leaders often miss, because if it's me, like let's say I had to let go of somebody because they weren't, they weren't up to the task. Well, that'd be huge. And I might have a hard time making that happen. But if you had to like get rid of some process that you had developed, to me, like, well, what's the big deal? Just do it, Janeal.
Yeah, yeah.
But to
right.
you, that is a big deal. So I need to, empathize with that. But so usually when I see things not happening, often behind the scenes, someone's not letting go with something.
Huh. Yeah, I would say that is holding back organizations every day. I think that that's going on a lot. And yeah, I think people are nervous or afraid or
denial.
Denial. Yeah, that things need to change. Yeah, for sure. I think that's
often like in businesses, you also hear the leaders say, yeah, I should have changed out that person a year ago. Right? For a year, we had a person in the wrong job, in the wrong place. Everyone in the organization knew it. They're holding everybody back, but the only one who can control that is the leader. And too often, that's doing people stuff is really hard.
Yeah, and the loss of momentum because that results from that is just, it's tragic. So
right, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's spending all the time and energy talking about that, and not moving the program forward. So, but that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on today. So tell us if we wanted to get in touch with you, how would we do that? What's the best way?
Yeah. One thing I would say is go to www.jailbreakleadership. That's jailbreak leadership, kind of unique.com. And that will take you to my podcast page. And there you can go and listen to some people I've interviewed, have gone through my process, or other people that are very purpose driven and doing some kind of fun, exciting things in San Diego here. And also it gets you to my website, so you can connect to me in multiple ways from there, but also you can reach out directly at jblanton@blantongroup.com. And
great.
I'd love to talk to you.
We'll post that in the feed so folks can find you. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, this was fun. I want to do this again.
Yes, I know. I love it too. And
working.
Next time I'll get my minion out of the way there.
Next time I want to get a seat. I got the stand-up program.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Have a great evening, and I'll see you
too. And thanks again for the invite. This was a lot of fun.
Okay. Bye. All right. Welcome back. Oh, that was so great. I just love talking with Jeff. He's just so knowledgeable, and he really does have a passion for helping others really get clear on where they need to go. And he's just a great guy, as you now know. So we're going to have him back for sure. So our next show is going to be on March 17th. And we have, I believe, Renee Zhao is on the 17th. I know she's coming up. And she is the founder of Donation Match. I'm so excited for you to meet her. Many of our members in the group came from Donation Match. Donation Match is an amazing platform that allows you to secure auction items and items for your events, and it helps those who want to give, businesses who want to give, and it's just brilliant. I sing her praises all the time. She's just brilliant, and I can't wait to have you meet her. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.